Sairam students. Today's literature class, we are going to begin with a new poem, and the name of the poem is A Tiger in the Zoo. Students, this poem is basically in your second lesson, that is Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. This poem comes after your lesson, Nelson Mandela. This poem is written by George Leslie Norris. He was a prize winning Welsh poet and short story writer. He taught academics at British and US institutions. He is also considered to be one of the most important Welsh writers of the post-war period, and his writing publications, his literary, has received many awards. That's about the poet. Just keep a book and a pen handy for all the important points that you will come across, the meaning of the hard words that we will be doing stanza after stanza. So let's get started. Before that, let us have a small introduction of the poem. Let us know what is the central idea of the poem. So this poem, which is written by Leslie Norris, explains the agony, the helplessness of a caged tiger. And that tiger is in the zoo. The poet explains what his life could be if he had been a free animal. The poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are caged by human beings for their own fun. So basically, students, if you see, this poem is going to move from a zoo to the forest and back to zoo again. So they are going to compare a tiger, how a tiger is when he is caged, and how a tiger is when it is left in its natural habitat. Let us see the central idea of the poem. The tiger is a proud creature, and it is a shame that such a powerful, agile, and untamable animal should be caged in a zoo. In his natural habitat, he doesn't need the help of any kind to hunt its own food. His hunting of deer at the waterhole may seem rather cruel. But why does he hunt, students? For pleasure? No, to satisfy its hunger. His presence in the natural habitat is necessary to maintain the ecological balance. Sometimes the tiger may stray into human habitation. He only displays his strength and ferociousness if he is provoked. Even in the cage, he ignores all those who come to the zoo to see him as entertainment. Like human beings, the tiger too loves and values his freedom. He shows his anger, hatred, and even defiance by walking about in rage in his cage. Human progress should not be at the cost of destroying the natural habitats of untamable and proud animals like the tiger. So here we will see how a tiger is compared, how it is in its natural habitat and how he behaves when he is caged in a zoo. So let's get started with our poem. A tiger in the zoo. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. So, stalks over here means follows. Vivid is bright colored. Pads is basically the paws of tiger. And rage means anger. So, what is the poet trying to say? He says that in this stanza, if you see, where is the tiger? He's in the zoo. He is caged. So here the poet says that the tiger is confined in the zoo and moves around in the cage under his bright colored skin. He further says that the tiger can take only few steps because the cage is very small and it's not easy to move in a small cage. The tiger happens to be a huge animal. And where is it kept? It's confined into a very small cage. So he says that it is taking few steps because the cage is very small and it's not easy to move inside it. One cannot hear his footsteps because he has very soft feet like velvet. Now, velvet is a type of a fabric which is very soft, which is very smooth. So, how are his feet? They are very soft. They are like velvet. And just because of that, there is no sound of tiger's footsteps. The tiger tries to control his anger. Now, why is the tiger angry? Because it is caged. Okay, it is not living in its natural habitat. It is put inside a cage. So he is trying to control its anger by quietly walking in the limited area of his cage. So is the first stanza clear to all of you? What is the poet saying? He stalks. Stalks means he follows in his bright colored stripes. The few steps. And why are the steps few? Because the cage where he is locked is a very small one. So that's the reason his steps are very few. On pads. Pads basically is the paws of the tiger. And on pads of velvet quiet. And just because they are very soft like velvet, one cannot hear the footsteps of the tiger in his quiet rage. Rage means anger, but here it is controlled. Why? It is between the cell in the cage. That's the reason he has controlled his anger. I hope, students, the first stanza is clear. Moving on to the next stanza. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the water hole where plump deer pass. So, what is lurking? Lurking is to be hidden as to wait for your prey. So, if you see in this particular stanza, ideally, what is the tiger supposed to do? Okay, the tiger is supposed to be in its natural habitat. Had he been there, what would he be doing? He would be lurking. He should be lurking in shadow. He would be hiding somewhere, waiting for its prey to come so that it would pounce on its prey. So, sliding through the long grass. Can you see over here, students? It is hiding over here. It is just waiting for its prey to come. Okay, and in the natural habitat in forest, okay, when animals come near the water bodies to drink water, that is where they pounce on their prey. So that is how the animals hunt for their prey. And that is what the tiger does. It is hiding behind the long grass, waiting near the water hole. Water hole is nothing but the water body where the plump deer pass. So in this stanza, the poet says that if this tiger was free, I told you students before also, the poet is trying to move from the zoo to the natural habitat. Again, the poet comes back to the zoo. Again, he moves to the natural habitat. So he is trying to compare the life of a tiger in a zoo to the life of a tiger in its natural habitat. So here what we are talking about is basically happens to be the natural habitat. Okay, so the poet says that if this tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grass near the water bodies so that he could easily catch a deer in order to have as its food. Clear, students? Basically, the poet wants to say that the actual life of a tiger is to live in the jungle where he could catch his prey and eat it. But the tiger in the cage cannot do so. In our first stanza, we have seen the tiger is very angry. Why? It's a very small cage where it is kept. So, this cage is not big enough for the tiger to move. Whereas if the tiger was in its natural habitat, he would have quietly waited near the long grass for its prey. Clear? Moving on to the third stanza. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. So what is snarling? Snarling is basically its warning sounds made by animals. Baring is uncovered. Fangs is sharp tooth of animals. So the poet says that if the tiger would have been free, he would have snarled around the houses located at the outskirts of the forest. He would have scared the people around over there. Okay, snarling is making noise. He would terrorize people with sharp tooth and claws. Here, in this photograph, can you see how his teeth are? They are sharp. Okay, so he would terrorize people with his sharp tooth and claws, and this would create fear among the people living in the village. So I hope students the third stanza is clear. Ideally, if he was set free, where would he be? He would be snarling around houses. What are these houses? Basically, they are the houses which are located at the outskirts of the forest. He would have made some sounds and he would have terrorized the entire village with his white fangs and claws. Proceeding further. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. So, where exactly is he right now? In this picture, can you see how he is? Such a ferocious animal. Ideally, he would have wandered in the jungle. But where is he? What is he doing? He is behind the bars. He is in a cage. He is locked in a concrete cell. So, what's a cell? Cell is basically a cage. Concrete is building made of bricks. When you use brick, cement, sand, and water. Okay, when we are constructing a building, we use all these materials. So it is a concrete, the building is concrete. Similar was his cage as well. It was concrete. It was made up of bricks, cement, sand, and water. His strength behind bars. We know how this animal is. Now the poet comes to the reality of the tiger that is inside the cage. I've just showed you the picture. Where is the tiger? Cage. He says that the tiger is confined in a strong cell which is made of a strong building material. Concrete. I just explained to you what concrete is. He further says that the tiger is behind the bars, so his ferociousness is also behind the bars. He is not free to do what he wants to do. How he would have been otherwise when he was left in the natural habitat? Okay, he is not the same way. Look over here, the way he is sitting. Okay, so when he is behind the bars, which means his ferociousness is also behind the bars. He just stalks in the cage. He never tries to terrorize the visitors because his power is restricted by the cage. So when the visitors visit him, he is just ignoring him because he knows even if he tries to be ferocious, the visitors will not be scared. Okay? Because he cannot jump out of the cage. So, therefore, he never tries to terrorize the visitors as he cannot attack them. Clear, students? He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. So, he hears the last voice at night. Here, if you see, the tiger is sleeping. He is inside the cage. Okay. What is the last voice that he hears? Of the patrolling cars. The cars that move around to keep a check inside the zoo. So patrolling is to guard, to vigil. So the last voice that he hears at night is of the patrolling cars and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant star. So all that he is doing at that point of time is staring the stars with his eyes. So what actually he could have done and what he is doing actually. So if you see stanza by stanza, the poet initially, where was he? The poet was basically talking about the tiger who was inside the cage. Look at the first stanza over here. This shows that the tiger was inside the cage. Then from here, the poet spoke about the tiger in its natural habitat. What he could have done if he were set free in its natural habitat. Then again, if you see, he comes back over here. He says that if he was in his natural habitat, he would be snarling around the houses. Okay. Next he says, but he brings it to the reality that where actually is a tiger? The tiger is in a cage, and so is his ferociousness. And what is he doing inside the cage? All he can do is just stare around. He's not even paying attention to the visitors that visit him. Okay, at night, what he hears is the sound of the patrolling cars. And he is just looking up in the sky and staring at the stars. So, students, I hope this poem is clear to all of you. Today in this class, we'll stop here. This poem also has literary devices that we have to deal with, which will be done in your other class. There is another link that has come with this video link. You have to click on that link and answer the questions. Till then, students, you will take care of yourselves. Sai Ram. Bye-bye.